You planned this from the start, you lying cheater.
The call came just as I was ending a long day at work. The office was quiet, and I was cleaning my desk, ready to go home. My phone buzzed, and Emma's name made me smile. She often called now to ask about my day or remind me to grab something. "Hey, love," I said warmly. "I was just leaving. What's up?" Her voice was cold, so cold it gave me chills. "Nathan, I need to talk to you." I froze. My smile faded. "Is something wrong?" "Yes," she said flatly. "I want a divorce." The words hit me hard. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Divorce? That didn't make sense. We weren't perfect, but I never thought things were that bad. "Wait, what?" I stammered. "Emma, what do you mean? A divorce?" "Why?" "I've decided," she said, no feeling in her tone. "I don't want to talk about it. If you have questions, speak to my lawyer." "Your lawyer?" My chest tightened. "You already spoke to a lawyer?" "Yes, you'll hear from him soon." "Don't call me Nathan, this is final." "Final?" My voice rose. "Emma, this is crazy. At least tell me why. What did I do?" She was silent for a long time. I thought she might explain, but when she spoke again, her voice was just as cold. "I don't owe you an explanation. This is what I want. Goodbye, Nathan." The call ended, leaving me standing there, phone in hand, shocked and silent. My heart raced, my head filled with questions I couldn't answer. How could this be happening? We'd been married 7 years. Things weren't perfect, but I thought we were steady. Yes, we'd grown a bit distant. She had been quieter, more tense, but I'd blamed it on stress or a bad spell. I never thought it would come to this. The drive home was a blur. My mind replayed her words over and over, each repetition adding another layer of confusion and pain. "I don't owe you an explanation." How could she be so cold, so dismissive of everything we'd shared? When I finally walked through the door of our home, the emptiness hit me like a physical blow. The house was quiet, eerily so, and the absence of her presence was palpable. I wandered through the rooms, looking for some clue, some sign that could explain what had gone so horribly wrong. But everything looked the same, neatly arranged, perfectly in place, as though nothing had changed. Except everything had changed. I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the empty seat across from me. This was where we used to have dinner together, where we'd talk about our day and make plans for the weekend. Now it felt like a hollow reminder of what I had lost. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every moment over the past year. Had I missed something? Was there a sign? A warning I had ignored? My mind was a whirlpool of doubts and regrets, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find an answer. By morning, I was exhausted but resolute. I wasn't going to let this end without understanding why. If Emma wouldn't give me an explanation, I would find one myself. I didn't deserve to be blindsided like this, to have my life upended without warning or reason. I made a decision then and there. I would meet with her lawyer. I would demand answers, and I would uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The next few days passed in a haze of disbelief and frustration. Emma's abrupt call replayed in my mind like a haunting refrain. I couldn't focus on anything, not work, not friends, not even basic tasks around the house. Her words had left me spinning, and the unanswered questions gnawed at me. Then came the email. It was from her lawyer, a man named Henry Clark. The message was professional and clinical, outlining the steps for the impending divorce and requesting a meeting to discuss the terms. Reading it felt like a punch to the gut. Emma had really planned this. She had already moved pieces on a chessboard I hadn't even known I was standing on. I scheduled the meeting for 2 days later, a mix of dread and determination churning in my stomach. I wasn't just going to roll over and let her dictate how this ended. I needed answers. When the day arrived, I walked into the law office with my head held high, though my insides felt like they were tied in knots. The receptionist greeted me with a rehearsed smile, directing me to a conference room. Henry was already there, seated at a polished wooden table with a stack of papers in front of him. He looked up as I entered, and I caught a flicker of something in his expression. Was it unease? Guilt? Whatever it was, it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by practiced professionalism. "Nathan," he said, standing to shake my hand. "Please have a seat." I sat down, studying him. Henry was an older man, well-dressed but with an air of weariness about him. His hands trembled slightly as he shuffled the papers in front of him. "I'm sure this situation is difficult for you," he began, his tone measured. "I'll do my best to make this process as smooth as possible." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "I appreciate the sentiment, Mr. Clark, but I didn't come here to discuss logistics. I came here for answers. Why is Emma doing this? What changed?" He hesitated, his gaze dropping to the papers in front of him. "I'm not at liberty to discuss personal matters," he said finally. "Don't give me that," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "You've been working with my wife to dismantle our marriage, and I deserve to know why. Was there someone else? Did I do something wrong? Tell me the truth." Henry's hand stilled, and for a moment the mask of professionalism slipped. He looked genuinely uncomfortable, his lips pressing into a thin line. "Nathan," he said slowly, "I understand your frustration, but my role here is to represent my client. That's all I can say." But there was something in his eyes, something that told me he wasn't entirely on board with the story he was being paid to tell. I leaned forward, my voice lowering. "Mr. Clark," I said, keeping my tone steady. "You're clearly a decent man, I can see it, and I can see that you're uncomfortable. Whatever Emma has told you, I'm asking you, as one human being to another, please tell me the truth." He didn't respond right away, his gaze darting to the door as though he expected Emma to burst in at any moment. Finally, he sighed, removing his glasses and rubbing his temples. "I shouldn't be telling you this," he muttered, more to himself than to me, "but you deserve to know." I held my breath, waiting. "Your wife has been planning this for months," he admitted, his voice low. "She's been working to build a case, gathering evidence to ensure she gets the majority of your shared assets. And there's someone else. She's been seeing him for a while." The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I had suspected deep down, but hearing it confirmed was a different kind of pain. "Someone else?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Henry nodded, avoiding my gaze. "I can't give you specifics, but I can tell you that she's been very strategic about this. She's not just trying to end the marriage. She's trying to come out ahead." Anger flared in my chest, hot and sharp. Months. She had been plotting this while I worked late nights to provide for us. While I thought we were just going through a rough patch, she had been smiling to my face while stabbing me in the back. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "Thank you, Mr. Clark," I said curtly, my voice tight with restrained fury. "You've told me what I needed to know." He looked at me, a flicker of regret crossing his face. "Nathan, for what it's worth, I'm sorry." I didn't respond. I left the office with my mind racing, a storm of emotions threatening to consume me. Betrayal, anger, heartbreak. They all swirled together, leaving me barely able to think. But beneath it all, a new resolve began to take shape. Emma might have been planning this for months, but I wasn't going to let her blindside me any longer. If she wanted a fight, I was ready for one. The next day, I called my old friend Chris. Chris was a lawyer himself, though he specialized in business law. Still, he was someone I trusted, someone I knew would guide me honestly. When I explained the situation, he didn't hesitate. "Nathan," he said firmly, "you need to protect yourself. Emma's already taken steps to secure her position, so now it's your turn. Gather everything. Financial records, property deeds, anything that shows your contributions to the marriage. We're going to build a case." Over the next week, I threw myself into the task. I combed through bank statements, emails, and receipts, piecing together the financial picture of our marriage. What I found only deepened my sense of betrayal. Emma had opened a separate account months ago, siphoning money from our joint account without my knowledge. She had made expensive purchases I couldn't trace to anything in our home. And then there were the credit card charges. Dinners, hotels, gifts, all of it pointed to this someone else Henry had mentioned. Chris urged me to hire a private investigator. If she's seeing someone, we need proof. It'll strengthen your position, especially if her relationship started before she filed for divorce. The idea made me uneasy. Spying on Emma felt invasive, wrong, even after everything she had done. But Chris was right. If I wanted to protect myself, I needed every piece of information I could get. The investigator, Diane, was thorough. Within days, she had answers. His name is Eric Lawson. He's a partner at her firm. "I have photos, receipts, timestamps, everything you need to establish infidelity." The evidence was damning. Emma and Eric walking hand in hand, sharing intimate dinners, leaving hotels together. The paper trail was just as incriminating. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was documented fact. The confrontation came at the next meeting. I walked in with Chris, carrying Diane's file. Emma was there, looking polished and composed, but I could see the cracks beneath her veneer. "Before we go any further," I said, interrupting Henry's opening remarks, "there's something you should see." I slid the file across the table. "Proof of your relationship with Eric Lawson. The hotel stays, dinners, trips. All of it." Emma's face drained of color, her composure faltering. "This is absurd," she said, her voice trembling. "You had me followed." "You've been lying to me for months, Emma," I replied, my tone calm but firm. "Plotting this divorce while seeing someone else and siphoning money from our accounts? Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out?" Henry shifted uncomfortably. "Emma, is this true?" She didn't respond, just stared at the file. The silence stretched until finally she snapped the folder shut and shoved it away. "This changes nothing," she said defiantly, though her voice lacked conviction. "I still deserve my share." "No, Emma," I said, leaning forward. "What you deserve is accountability, and that's exactly what you're going to get." Chris slid over our revised proposal. The terms reflected reality, Emma's betrayal, and my contributions to the marriage. She'd still receive a settlement, but it was far less than what she had schemed to take. The negotiations continued for weeks. Emma's bravado faded with each passing meeting, replaced by simmering resentment. She knew she had lost the upper hand. During one particularly tense session, she finally broke her silence. "You think you've won?" she said bitterly. "But you'll never understand why I had to do this." I stared at her, my expression unreadable. "Maybe I won't, Emma. But that doesn't excuse what you did." By the time the settlement was finalized, I felt like a new man. The terms were fair. While I had to part with some assets, I retained the majority of what I had worked so hard to build. More importantly, I walked away with my dignity intact. Emma's plans had collapsed, and though the fight had been brutal, I had emerged stronger. The months that followed were transformative. I threw myself into my woodworking business, turning passion into profit. Orders flooded in, and the joy I felt creating something with my own hands was indescribable. I reconnected with old friends, including Sarah, someone I'd lost touch with during my marriage. What started as casual coffee meetings evolved into something deeper. With her, there were no pretenses, no games. For the first time in years, I could be myself without fear of judgment or betrayal. Meanwhile, news of Emma's struggles trickled in. Her relationship with Eric had ended. He'd moved on, leaving her to pick up the pieces of a life she had been so eager to create. Financial difficulties, strained friendships, isolation. She had traded stability and loyalty for fleeting excitement and was left with nothing but regret. Years later, I received an unexpected email from Emma, an apology full of regret for the damage she'd caused. I read it, felt nothing, and filed it away. Her words were her burden to carry, not mine. My life was no longer tied to hers. Standing on my porch with Sarah, watching the sunset, I felt profound peace. Emma's betrayal had once seemed like the end of everything. Now it felt like the beginning of something far greater. I had reclaimed my life, and for the first time in years, I was living it on my own terms. Looking back now, I can see how naive I was during those early months of marriage. I thought love was enough, that commitment meant something. Emma had taught me that some people view relationships as transactions, opportunities to advance their own interests. But she also taught me something else, that I was stronger than I ever imagined. The woodworking business continued to grow beyond my wildest dreams. What started as a way to cope with the aftermath of betrayal became a thriving enterprise. I hired my first employee, then a second. We moved into a larger workshop space. Clients were willing to wait months for custom pieces because they knew the quality and craftsmanship they'd receive. Sarah and I had been together for over 2 years now. She understood my journey, never pushed for more than I was ready to give, and celebrated every small victory along the way. We talked about marriage sometimes, but there was no rush. We both knew what we had was real, built on honesty and mutual respect, rather than convenience or desperation. One evening, while reviewing the day's orders in my expanded workshop, I realized I hadn't thought about Emma in weeks. She had become truly irrelevant to my daily existence. The woman who once held the power to destroy my world with a single phone call was now just a distant memory, a chapter in a story that had found its proper ending. Chris stopped by occasionally, always amazed at the transformation he'd witnessed. "You know," he said during one visit, "I've seen a lot of divorces in my career. Most people either never recover or they become bitter. You did something different. You grew." He was right. The man who had sat across from Henry Clark that first day, desperate for answers and drowning in confusion, barely resembled who I'd become. That man had been defined by his relationship, by external validation, by fear of being alone. This version of myself was self-contained, confident, and genuinely happy with the life I'd built. The irony wasn't lost on me. Emma's betrayal, which was meant to destroy me, had actually freed me. She'd done me the greatest favor of my life by showing me who she really was and forcing me to discover who I really was. Without her deception, I might have spent decades in a loveless marriage, slowly withering away while she took advantage of my loyalty and dedication. Sometimes I wondered if she ever realized what she'd lost. Not just the material things, though I knew from occasional reports that her financial situation had never recovered, but the intangible value of a partner who would have fought for their relationship, who valued commitment, who believed in working through problems together. She'd traded all of that for a few exciting months with a man who discarded her the moment things became complicated. But those thoughts didn't consume me anymore. They were philosophical curiosities, nothing more. My focus remained on the future I was building, the relationships I was nurturing, the business I was growing, and the person I was becoming. Emma had played her role in my story, but she was no longer the author. I had taken back that power, and I wasn't giving it up again.